When I arrived at the wedding hall, my daughter laughed. "Your name isn't on the list." Narrator's voice, calm, slightly aged, with a hint of tremor that betrays deep hurt. The invitation felt heavy in my hands, not because of the thick, cream-colored cardstock, but because of the weight of the moment it represented. My daughter, Olivia, was getting married. For 27 years, I had poured every ounce of my being into her. After her father passed away when she was just a teenager, it was just the two of us against the world. I worked 2 jobs to keep our small suburban home in Scottsdale, Arizona, afloat, sacrificing my own dreams so she could have hers. I was the one who held her hand through scraped knees, teenage heartbreaks, and college applications. I was the one who helped her pick out this very dress, the one who cried tears of joy when she announced her engagement to Michael, a man who seemed so polished, so perfect. The wedding was at a historic venue in downtown Phoenix, a place of sprawling gardens and marble pillars, a world away from our modest life. I'd used the last of my savings, a fund I'd carefully guarded for my own retirement, to help them secure it. It was my gift, a symbol of my unconditional love. As I stood before the grand oak doors of the reception hall, dressed in a dusty rose gown I'd spent weeks searching for, my heart swelled with a nervous pride. But when I approached the hostess stand, a young woman with a clipboard smiled politely and asked for my name. "Eleanor Vance," I said, my voice warm. She scanned the list, her brow furrowing slightly. She scanned it again. "I'm sorry," she said, her professional smile faltering. "I don't see that name here." Just then, Olivia appeared, a vision in white, with Michael at her side. She looked right at me, a strange, cold glimmer in her eyes, and let out a small, sharp laugh. "Oh, Mom," she said, the word dripping with something I couldn't place, something chilling. "Your name isn't on the list." The sentimental music cuts abruptly to silence. The screen fades to black for a beat, then returns. My story begins not with that laugh, but 20 years earlier, with a promise I made to my late husband, Robert. We had built a life together, piece by piece, starting with a small landscaping business he ran from our garage. He was the heart of the operation, with a gift for making things grow, and I was the head, managing the books, the clients, the contracts. When he fell ill, his last words to me were about protecting what we had built for Olivia's future. So I did. I took over the business, transforming it from a local service into a respected regional company, Vance Landscapes LLC. I poured my grief and my energy into that company, not just for myself, but to build a legacy for my daughter. It was our security, our story, our future, all tied up in deeds, contracts, and trust documents I managed with meticulous care. Or so I thought. Scene change. Interior of a quiet, modestly furnished living room. It's night. Eleanor sits alone, the wedding invitation now looking like a cruel joke on her coffee table. The dusty rose dress is draped over a nearby chair. The drive home from Phoenix was a blur. The city lights smeared into streaks of color through my tears. Humiliation is a cold, heavy blanket. It settles deep in your bones. Being turned away from my own daughter's wedding, a wedding I helped pay for, was a public erasure. The confused and pitying glances from other guests, the way Michael put a proprietary hand on Olivia's arm and guided her away without a backward glance. It was a calculated performance designed to sever me from my own life. Back in my house, the silence was deafening. Every framed photo of Olivia and me seemed to mock me. There we were, smiling at her high school graduation. There we were, arms around each other on a trip to the Grand Canyon. Was it all a lie? My first instinct was to call her, to scream, to demand an explanation. But her laugh echoed in my ears. It wasn't impulsive. It was triumphant. This wasn't a mistake. This was a message. My mind raced back over the past year. Michael, a financial advisor with a disarmingly charming smile, had entered our lives and everything had subtly shifted. He'd started helping me with the business finances, suggesting I digitize all my records for efficiency. He'd offered to review my will and the family trust documents just to make sure everything is in order for Olivia's future. I, wanting to trust the man my daughter loved, had agreed. I had given him access. I had trusted him. The Department of Justice often warns about financial exploitation, noting that perpetrators are frequently people in positions of trust who isolate their victims and gain control over their assets. I had welcomed the fox into the henhouse. A cold dread began to seep into my shock. This wasn't just about a wedding list. This was about something much bigger. I spent the next few days in a fog of grief, but on the third day, a flicker of the woman who built a business from scratch returned. Robert didn't raise a victim. I would not be erased. My fight wouldn't be loud or hysterical. It would be quiet, methodical, and built on the one thing I knew better than anyone, the paper trail. Scene change. Eleanor is in her home office. It's cluttered but organized. She's pulling out old file boxes labeled Vance Landscapes, trust documents, contracts. My first stop was the company's incorporation documents. Tucked away in a dusty file box, I found the original LLC formation papers from 1998. My name was there, clear as day. Eleanor Vance, managing member. Robert was listed as a founding member. After his death, I had filed the amended paperwork, making me the sole proprietor. I remembered the trip to the county clerk's office, the crisp feel of the official stamp. Now, I needed to see what they had on file today. A trip to the Arizona Corporation Commission website delivered the first blow. The public records for Vance Landscapes LLC had been updated 6 months ago. The new managing member was listed as a holding company I'd never heard of. My name was gone. The registered agent address had been changed from my home office to a P.O. box in downtown Phoenix. It was a clean, professional-looking digital signature that had authorized the change. My signature. Except it wasn't. It was a forgery, but a very good one. This wasn't an isolated act of cruelty. This was a systematic dismantling of my life's work. Cases of document fraud, especially forgeries of signatures on critical papers like a power of attorney or business filings, are a common tactic in elder financial abuse. They had stolen my company from under my nose. That's when I knew I couldn't do this alone. I remembered a young attorney, David Chun, who I'd hired a few years back for a contract dispute. He was sharp, patient, and incredibly tech-savvy. He wasn't a family lawyer. He specialized in corporate litigation and digital forensics. He was perfect. When I sat in his office, laying out the wedding invitation next to the forged business filing, he didn't look at me with pity. He looked at me with a focused intensity. "They weaponized the process against you, Eleanor," he said, his fingers tapping on his keyboard. "So we'll use the process to fight back. We need to find the original digital files. Metadata doesn't lie." Our investigation became a quiet obsession. David filed for an immediate injunction to freeze the assets of Vance Landscapes, preventing Michael and Olivia from selling it or draining its accounts. Meanwhile, I turned my house upside down, searching for any piece of the puzzle. I found it in an old laptop I'd thought was broken. It was the one Michael had convinced me to replace with a new, more secure model. After a week of work, David's tech guy recovered the hard drive. On it, we found the original scans of my trust documents, my will, and my property deeds, the ones I'd sent to Michael for his review. David explained that digital documents contain hidden information, metadata, timestamps, author information, revision history. The files Michael had emailed back to me, the ones with my updated digital signature, had a creation date weeks before I had supposedly signed them. The author listed in the document properties wasn't me. It was Michael's work computer ID. It was the digital equivalent of a rookie criminal leaving their fingerprints all over the crime scene. We also found drafts of my will that systematically reduced my inheritance to Olivia to nothing, leaving everything to Michael. Drafts of a new power of attorney that would give him complete control over my medical and financial decisions, citing my advancing age and cognitive decline. The language was cold, clinical, and utterly devastating. The scope of their betrayal was breathtaking. It wasn't just about money, it was about stripping me of my autonomy and my very identity. Similar cases have shown how perpetrators manipulate legal documents to gain control, sometimes deceiving individuals into signing away property or control without their full understanding. The biggest shock came when we examined the deed to my house. The original deed was in my name, free and clear. But Michael had drafted a quitclaim deed, transferring ownership of the property into a trust controlled by him and Olivia. He had attached a forged signature page to the document, a tactic not unlike cases where victims are tricked into signing incomplete documents. They were planning to evict me from the home I had shared with my husband, the home where I had raised my daughter. They hadn't just uninvited me from a wedding. They were trying to erase me from my own home, my own legacy. Armed with this digital trail of breadcrumbs, David filed a comprehensive fraud lawsuit. The core of our case wasn't emotional pleas about a mother's betrayal. It was a cold, hard presentation of evidence. Forged signatures, manipulated document metadata, and a clear pattern of undue influence. The injunction on the company was upheld, and the judge ordered a freeze on the title of my house, preventing its transfer. It was a small, quiet victory, but it was the first time in months I felt like I could breathe again. The legal process grinds slowly, but the evidence was irrefutable. Michael and Olivia's lawyers, likely seeing the mountain of digital proof stacked against them, pushed for a settlement. They wanted to avoid a public trial where their calculated fraud would be laid bare. I almost refused. A part of me wanted to see them on the stand, forced to explain their cruelty to a jury. But David reminded me of my goal. This wasn't about revenge. It was about justice. Quiet justice. Scene change. Eleanor is sitting at a large boardroom table. She looks poised and calm. David sits beside her. Across the table, Michael and Olivia look pale and defeated. The settlement meeting was the first time I had seen Olivia since the wedding. She wouldn't meet my eye. Michael did all the talking, his polished charm replaced with a tense, brittle anger. They agreed to everything. The company, Vance Landscapes, was returned to my sole ownership, all fraudulent filings reversed. The quitclaim deed on my house was nullified. They would pay all my legal fees and a significant sum in damages. The final document was placed in front of me. As I picked up the pen to sign, my hand was steady. I looked across the table, not at Michael, but directly at my daughter. For a fleeting second, her eyes met mine, and in them I saw not malice, but a hollowed-out emptiness. I realized then that whatever Michael had promised her, whatever dream of wealth and status he had sold her, had cost her everything that mattered. She had gained a wedding reception, but she had lost her mother, her history, and her soul. Final scene. Eleanor is walking through a beautiful, thriving botanical garden. It's sunny. She touches the petals of a rose, a genuine, peaceful smile on her face. The soft, sentimental music from the beginning returns, but now it feels hopeful, not sad. Narrator's voice calm, strong and clear. I never spoke to Olivia again. Sometimes, grief for the daughter I once knew washes over me, a phantom limb of a love that was amputated. But I am not erased. My name is on the deed to my house. It's on the business I built with my husband. It's etched into the legacy I fought to reclaim. I sold the company last year to a group of young, passionate landscapers who reminded me of Robert. I used the money to start a small foundation that provides pro bono legal aid to seniors facing financial exploitation. My justice wasn't found in a dramatic courtroom showdown. It was found in the quiet clicks of a keyboard, in the unyielding logic of a paper trail, and in the calm courage to demand the truth. I was turned away from a party, but in doing so, I was given back my life. And that is a celebration worth having. The screen fades to black,